I'm Leon Davis, and you're listening to Altitude Adjustment, the weekly podcast about people, politics, and professions. And I want to thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I also want you to know that this podcast is for mature audiences only. Altitude Adjustment may contain language, images, or ideas that some may find offensive. Your discretion is advised. Now, if you've seen the show advertisements, which I put out, you may think that I am denigrating or pushing back against current trends in pop culture, but that's really not the case. It is my true hope that in this next hour, that we're going to do more of an examination of where we are with pop culture, and that's coming up with you for you right now. Welcome to Altitude Adjustment. All right, I'd like to welcome my co-hosts, Leonard Davis and Warren Harper. Good day, gentlemen.
How's everybody doing? Good
All
day.
right.
How you
Happy to
doing?
be here.
Excellent. So,
Happy to be
so we've we've had this. I've had this show in the hopper for at least a month or two, and my co-hosts have kind of danced around it until they couldn't possibly dance around it anymore because I just was not this. I wanted this podcast. I wanted to do this. I wanted to talk about this topic.
I'm glad you're being honest, bro.
Honesty is the best policy.
I'm telling you. Because I'm like, oh man, like, okay, well, all right, I give. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So
We couldn't withhold it any
you
longer.
couldn't withhold it. I was not going to be denied,
I'm telling you.
and so I, I- originally I wasn't going to stream to Facebook or Twitch because I was going to read some of the lyrics of the song WAP. Uh, and for those people who are not initiated, you're probably over 40, maybe even over 50. Um, WAP is Wet Ass Pussy by Cardi B, Nicki Minaj, and uh,
Meg the Stallion.
Megan the
Make the
Stallion.
stallion.
Yeah.
And so we're going to leave open that in order to so more people can at least see some of the discussion where I'm not going to read any of the lyrics. I'm going to leave it open for you to go out and look at the song for yourself and see the lyrics and try to understand what might have prompted me to at least have this discussion. Now, I'm not saying that there's a right or wrong about the presentation of this song. What did concern me was that music of this type, or performance or art of this type, used to be not celebrated in the general pop culture. Um, it used to be you could get the music,
Hmm.
but usually you had to hear about it from somebody else, or you heard about it from a radio station that was not um, top rated radio station in the market. It was a station that um, it, it would be the brown bag equivalent to magazines. It would be, not
Or underground.
more underground.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
I see things have changed. I believe, and that's has um, so in our pop culture now, on the red carpet, um, actors and actors, we don't say actresses anymore, it's all actors. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but actors sometimes dress so scantily that it leaves little to the imagination. And of course, I grew up in an era when um, there was a time and a place for everything. Everything wasn't okay to do everywhere. And and this and I'm looking at I know how we got here. Someone pushes the edge a little bit, and then someone else pushes the edge a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And so we've creeped into where we are now. There's I think, a clash of cultures. Leonard started to share with me a little bit about um, Elvis Presley. You want to tell that story?
Sure. When he was coming out, Elvis had a little dance he did when he played his guitar. He just shook his hips,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't see anything wrong with it. But the culture at that time just thought this was the coming of the devil man or something. Uh, I was just reading a story about how Ed Sullivan wouldn't book him on the show at first. And then, under the guise of pushing the envelope, Steve Allen, who was the first host of the Tonight Show, I guess, before Johnny Carson took it over, booked him and had him booked in. The NBC guys tried not to, the heads of NBC tried to take it back, and Steve Allen wouldn't and put him on. So Ed Sullivan put him on. And you got to understand that back in the day, Ed Sullivan's show was probably the biggest. Ed Sullivan and Steve Allen with their two shows. You had to do those shows to make it on the TV market. And if you was there and you were accepted by them, then it just went to the culture accepting you. And it wasn't about his dance, it wasn't about his dress or anything. It was just about his dancing and the way, he twitched his hips. And that started a fire gate, so to speak. It's just bringing in the rock and roll music. So all the Bobby Soxers from the 40s, they grew up with Sinatra. When Elvis was coming on and our whole rock and roll genre was coming on, it was bringing in the younger teenagers who was getting bigger allowances because of the economic boom post World War II, and they were buying his records.
Mm-hmm.
And the business end of it, if they see it's going to sell, they're going to push it up. And
Absolutely.
Elvis was selling. The black artists, so of that era started coming out, like Cole, like Chuck Berry, where they couldn't get airplay at first on radios, because white artists would constantly redo their music and their versions would sell
Right.
more than the black artists. And then, when Elvis Presley started, he coming through, then a lot more black artists started to come through and they started to sell. And, it just kept going up. I
So,
mean, there were still challenges or whatever.
so some of the things. Uh,
Message.
no, go ahead. Did you want to
My
add something?
granddaughter is trying to get in, so I'm just gonna send her a message. Go ahead.
Oh, is she trying to get in?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we have a guest on the show who's under 40, who wants to come in and join us, and so we're working to make that happen. So some of the things, a few weeks ago we had on Angela Skirtu, and you remember she openly talked about BDSM. You know, 50 Shades of Grey was
Mm-hmm.
a popular movie at A-level movie theaters. So,
Mhm.
what's the young lady? Lizzo. Lizzo,
Yeah.
Yes.
at a Lakers game, courtside on
Hmm.
television.
Hmm.
So we're pushing the envelope and pushing the envelope. I wouldn't have a problem living in a nudist colony. I think the human body is wonderful. I think the human body is great. But should there be some moderation exhibited for those people who don't think that the human body is great? Should we, in a shared society, because we have other individuals that don't agree with us, that don't think that it's okay. So how do we find a mutual a ground of mutual understanding so that everybody feels comfortable in public?
Well,
Uh,
I think, this is interesting because I was in the barber shop with my grandson today and we had a discussion about it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
yeah.
We had a discussion about it yesterday because I was trying to get him to bring some of his friends on. And he was like, "What? I don't listen to that crap." He's like 21. And so he and his crew are on a whole different level as far as, that genre, that type of media is concerned. But now his younger sister, on the other hand, who I'm hoping comes on the show, um, she I think she's going to be a little have a different attitude. We'll see when she gets here. But the thing I was going to say about my barber is he's like in his 50s, and I asked him about, "Hey man, you hip the WAP? You know about WAP?" And he's like, "What? What you talking about?" He didn't even know about it. So I think it's really specific to the people who are interested in it, but following it or even aware of it. Because if you don't watch certain video channels where they show it or listen to maybe stations where they're playing it, you might not be aware. So I think there's an audience for it, and then there's a bunch of people who are not interested, don't even know about it.
I understand that, and so I guess really my question is, um, if you watch television, okay, so network television
Mhm.
has a rating system,
Right.
PG, TVMA for mature audiences, and how do we classify certain material as for adults and certain material that's for children? Because there are a lot of children's cartoons that are basically targeted towards adults, like The Simpsons, like BoJack
Right.
Horseman, whatever that is. I don't watch it, but these are cartoons that are targeted towards adults, and um, and even some of the Saturday used to be uh, cartoons on Saturday were kids cartoons, but there
Yeah.
was a lot of adult material or adult themes and adult conversations and ideas included in those cartoons. And so, as a society, my thought is that we have to. Um, so Cardi B's defense, or maybe not Cardi B's defense, but I heard a gentleman defend the song by saying it's artistic expression. It was one of the ladies. I'm sorry, one of the ladies and a gentleman, but that it's artistic expression. It's
Mhm.
it's the ability to express themselves, and there has to be some level of accountability and some level of a personal accountability and societal accountability when creating your art. Who are the intended recipient of your art that's being created, and what the overall impact of your art is on the community.
Mhm.
Well, you're. I believe in artistic expression. Uh, my view of artistic expression might not match your view or someone else's view. They had this rating system go out,
Yeah.
and everything that come on TV now, TV, ML 14 or whatever. And and the downside of that is when you put these classifications on, people look at and say, oh, what are you trying to hide to me? You make it more accessible, you make it more desirable to people to watch who's not supposed who you think you don't want to watch.
The
Like for
forbidden fruit
example,
idea.
huh?
The forbidden fruit idea. If it's
Hmm.
The
forbidden fruit,
forbidden fruit idea.
They're
more
gonna
people
want.
want to see it.
They're gonna want to eat it.
Right.
Like for example, when we were growing up at home, I didn't get to see Helter Skelter till I was shoot almost grown. Because I remember the day it was coming on TV, Mom sent me and David downstairs in our room that you, David, and I used to share a room. And me and David got some snacks, got something to drink. Like, yeah, we can fit to see this. As soon as my hand went to get the TV, Mom had sent you down to get the TV. And David's on one leg, I'm on the other. You walking up the steps. We like, no, no. So for a few hours there, David and I had to entertain ourselves. So we had no TV. And so Mom was like, well, she didn't want us to see something. She had a way of eliminating this. Now it's hard today with today's multimedia. Kids got phones, they got game systems that can play movies and all of this. And it's just the same thing with that movie Across 110th Street. You, Mary, her, and Robert went to the drive-in to see it. David and I had to go spend the night with Grandma. But I'm just like, there's choices. See, I was listening to that WAP when you talked about I went to listen to it, and they talked so much about the sex organ and making it used to get what they need and all that. I mean, it's not my cup of tea. I'm a Temptations guy. I'm an Isley Brothers guy. I'm a War guy, you know. But for the people that like it, it's there for them to have it.
I'm going to take a
It's there
quick
for
break.
them to buy it to support it.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take a quick break, an ID for the podcast, and we'll be right back.
Experience Altitude Adjustment, a weekly podcast about people, politics, and professions. It's built around user interaction, so join the conversation by visiting thelionsden.wixsite.com/home.
Okay. So one of the things that you mentioned was access. There's access to more things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I mentioned in a podcast, in an earlier podcast before you guys had joined me, was I talked about some people trying to scrub society of all of its context. And at the time, I was talking about there was an accident. The guy was driving, and he was distracted driving, and the car flipped over, and he got killed. And they cut the video at certain points. And when police shootings happen, or any kind of shooting, they may show somebody being shot, but they rarely show somebody dying. Even the George Floyd video, I don't think the death was shown on national network TV. It was shown on the internet. You could
Right.
see it. And I talked about scrubbing society of all of its context. That that was not a good thing. But there is also the aspect of what is too far. If nothing becomes too far. If nothing becomes too far.
I
Then
think the lesson that
the red carpet could be your doctor's office. You could be in your doctor's office or your dentist's office,
Mm-hmm.
and someone decides they don't want to wear clothes into your dentist's office. Not only do they not want to wear clothes, they want to draw arrows pointing to their genitals and maybe, highlight certain genitals to go into the doctor's office and sit. So if we don't have thresholds, if we don't have a threshold of what's acceptable and unacceptable,
Mm-hmm.
we could get that behavior. It is quite literally possible, as we've seen the video WAP almost get us there.
Well, the issue is, just like anything else, it's up to individual establishments. Like the doctor can say you're not allowed to come in here not unfully dressed. Like so many establishments we see with a little plaque on the door: no shoes, no shirt, no service. Uh,
Exactly.
Oh,
uh,
you mean that same doctor's office that says, please turn off your phone?
it could
That
be the
same
same doctor's office
that
that says,
same
please
doctor's
turn off your phone.
that same, the doctor's office that says turn off your phone? You mean those people who don't turn off their phone? Who ignore that?
Sim, similar, similarly, yes.
I,
It's just like
well, I mean,
most
you put
cities.
forth that idea that the
Hmm.
establishment can set the rules. Okay? So you put forth the idea that the
Okay.
establishment sets the rules. The establishment sets the rules, and people
Yes.
ignore them. The establishment says you got to wear a mask to come in here. How many
Right.
videos have you
Hmm.
seen over the last several months where people have
Where
decided
people weren't wearing
that
masks.
doesn't mean shit to them?
And I agree with you, but it's the same theory between, like, our society has determined that bank robbery is against the law,
Right.
but we still got people
We
that
still
go
got
out
people that bank rob.
and rob banks,
I
and
agree.
then you let them deal, with the legal consequences. I've seen people come in,
Mm-hmm.
try to get into places and not wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
Like in Illinois, if you don't wear a mask, and when the employees say, okay, you got to get out, you can't wear a mask, and you get that employee guff, they did this a couple months ago. You can be charged. You can be charged with a criminal offense
Mm-hmm.
in the state of Illinois. They could call the police, come get you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
so guys like that guy that went into Walmart with his kids who decided he just wasn't gonna wear a mask.
Mm-hmm.
In Illinois now, by the law, the police will come take him away, lock him up. His
Mm-hmm.
kids go to the Illinois Child and Family Services Division. You cause a bunch of crap because you don't want to wear a mask. Like the times that I actually get in my van and me and the kids go somewhere, we keep masks in the van. So when we get out and we got to go into an establishment, we wear masks.
Mm-hmm.
Now
So
other people that don't, that's up to them. But we wearing masks.
so what you're saying is, in order to moderate people's behavior, there has to be laws in place.
I'm just saying that's an option.
Okay.
Just
Well,
like
okay. So the
just
question
like
I'm asking
when they
then,
passed.
the question I'm
Okay.
asking is,
All right.
WAP crosses previous boundaries of decency, of societal decency boundaries, and it's not. There's no law.
Mm-hmm.
There's okay. So it's not classified as. If they classified it as porn, if they classify the video as porn,
Hmm.
then it can be regulated. And so what I'm asking is, in a society, there are societal norms that we put into place so that we don't have to pass laws for people to conform because they're going to conform because they want to see a better society.
You're
And
going
so
to always have.
when you say pass laws, what you're saying is the only way to have societal norms is if everything is regulated by laws, by written,
What I'm saying is,
enforceable laws.
that was one way of dealing with the situation.
I
You're
understand
always
that.
going to
Okay,
have
so
somebody. You're always going to have somebody who's going to choose. Yeah, they say that's what the norm is, but I'm going against that.
right,
I mean,
Right.
if we went just by societal norms, the state of black people in this country, it was the norm for all the Jim Crow stuff and the other stuff that was happening with black people in this country before the black people said, "Wait a minute, we don't like this norm. It's
Mhm.
not good for us." I mean, you can have any type of reason you want to push against the norm. I mean,
I understand that. So
when
what is the mechanism that we should use in order to establish societal behavior that allows everybody to flourish? How do we achieve that?
I think what we got now is you having your choice to establish. It's just like, okay, for example, on what we're talking about. In the old days, it was all these churches that came up here and said you was going against this. It was immoral, indecent, and all that. But at the same time, these churches didn't want nobody to restrict when they can meet for church,
Mhm.
how long they can meet for church, what days of the week they can meet. So you have to. There are some things that you have to choose what's good for you. I have to choose what's good for me. Warren has to choose what's good for
Okay,
him.
so if you choose what's good for you is to go into a doctor's office and shoot the receptionist, is that okay?
No, it's not.
Considering the fact, okay,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
And
you were saying
Considering the fact, it's illegal,
that's what I'm
and I
saying.
got to
So what you're
pay.
saying is in order to control behavior, all forms of behavioral control have to be legal.
well,
That
you have to
wasn't
have a way to
even though
enforce
that
that
was
behavior.
even though that was made illegal, I still went and did it because I would have chosen to do it. Now I've got to pay the consequence. You can't stop them from doing what they want to do, but if they do it, you can make it
That's what I'm.
you
Okay,
can
so
make
you're
it
not
where there's
understanding what I'm saying. But
consequences.
go ahead, Warren.
Yeah, I think the question you're asking is, do we control behavior by law, or is there another way? And I'm saying this country was established, this experiment in democracy, by establishing the Constitution, which is basically setting down laws.
I understand
For
that.
example,
I'm sorry. Go
if
ahead. No,
you
go ahead.
know, when we had slavery,
hmm
a bunch of people thought that was fine.
hmm
How did we do away with it? We abolished it through the law. And I think that's probably the way most things have to be controlled, because on the one hand, in America, you got a bunch of people right now saying, this is America. I do what I want to do. Well, how do you control them when a bunch of people feel they crossed the line? How do you enforce control their behavior?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. If we make the law the ultimate authority of behavioral control,
Mhm.
then we have to get down to legislating walking across the street. We have to get down to legislating. I mean, and we do.
We do.
We have jaywalking laws.
Exactly.
We have a law about jaywalking because we've asked people don't cross in the middle of the street. Because crossing in the middle of the street puts you in a danger, and it puts the drivers at danger, and it puts other people on the sidewalk at danger. But because people chose to do what they wanted to do rather than obeying a non-legal mandate. We had to make it legal. If that's the case, then if legal is the only method of control, of getting people to conform to a behavior, then we will have to regulate everything. Everything that we ask people, you please don't use your phone in the doctor's office. There's a law. That means now, in order to enforce that law, we have to have more police. Because imagine how many doctor's offices there are across just this state alone. And so if a police officer is required every time someone violates that, then we will have more police officers than we have store workers. We will have more police officers than we have trash pickup. We will have more police officers. The legal force required to implement all of those laws will be astronomical.
Well, just like in different stores and other businesses, they tell you while you up here conducting business, cut your phone off. We won't. I've seen it where they
I
have signs.
understand
We
that, but
won't
how do you
serve
enforce it?
The thing is, you'll never get a society where 100% of the people, 100% of the time, are gonna go with enforcement. They're just gonna do it out of the goodness of their heart.
And that's the thing. How do we
Because
get people to
they
do
don't
it out
want-
of the goodness of their heart?
It's not gonna happen.
Okay, so what you're
It's
saying is,
not gonna happen.
so what you're saying is that there has to be a legal remedy. There has to be police. Your idea of having societal norms is a police force.
No, it's not.
Well, what is it?
What I'm saying is this. Okay, what I'm saying is this.
I'm listening.
People gotta have their own choices for what they do. Now, back to our original thing
Mhm.
with WAP.
Okay.
There are people that like that type of music. There
Okay.
are people that are consumers of that type of music.
Okay.
There are people that buy that type of music.
Okay.
It's not my cup of tea. I listened to that thing, and it seems like there was more to me
Uh-huh.
sexual and curse words than regular words.
Mhm.
It is not. It's not anything I would go to the store and
I
purchase.
understand all of that. I'm
want-
trying to understand the enforcement aspect of it now. Because the idea
You
is
can't.
that we have to have
Okay.
societal norms. There has to be societal norms. There has to be. There has to be
Well, how
norms
who
Okay.
determines
that are
who
I'm sorry, go ahead.
determines the norms?
Huh?
That's the question. Who determines the norms?
Society
Okay,
determines
just
the
say-
norms. They're societal norms.
Just say.
That's
just
what I'm
say
saying.
whatever
They're
norm-
societal norms.
Just say.
So we
for
as a
whatever norm
society
you have,
determine that.
Okay,
Whatever norm you have, there's always somebody out there looking to break it.
I understand
Because
that, but how do you
either they
enforce
don't
it?
want to.
So your idea is they're going to break it, so let's not worry about enforcing it. Let's not worry about
No.
having it. Well, then how do you enforce it is
No,
what I'm
that's
asking
not-
you.
That's not
It
what I'm
depends
saying.
on
Well,
what
what
the
are you
norm-
saying?
What's being broken?
Huh?
It depends on what's being broken. For example, jaywalking. I mean, who hasn't jaywalked? Have you ever been
It do-
ticketed or
Because
fined
I've
for
done
jaywalking?
wrong, doesn't mean that it should become right. Two wrongs don't make a right. Just because
I'm not saying it's right.
just because
but
I
then
crossed,
you gotta-
just because I jaywalked, doesn't mean it's okay to jaywalk.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But at the same time, if you did it, do you feel like you should have got a fine or a ticket?
I should have.
Okay.
If that's
So-
what we decided, if what we decided as a society that jaywalkers get tickets, and I did wrong, shouldn't I expect to suffer the consequences if I knowingly violated a law?
Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time,
I don't understand.
every
What good is a law that we're not going to enforce? What good is a law that we're not going to enforce? It's not a law.
I'm agreeing with you on that. We got plenty of laws that we don't enforce. Like right now, the marijuana laws. All these states are passing their own laws, but don't you know that a federal agent catch you engaged in that marijuana practice,
Mm-hmm.
they can arrest you and you broke a federal law. Now what's happening is the feds are going wink wink to all the states, pass your laws so you can collect this tax money.
Okay.
Pass,
So
pass
I'm
your
going to try
laws
to get back
so you can
to.
do this.
So I want to try to get back to how do we implement social norms so that more people are comfortable participating in society as a whole. Like you said,
I think
WAP is not your cup of
okay.
tea. You would
Right.
not buy the music. You would not listen to the music because the
Exactly.
graphicness of the music is beyond what you think is socially acceptable. And to some degree, you're saying, I don't have a problem with it, but uh, I'm not saying we shouldn't have the music. So I'm asking you, how then do we allow people to be able to express themselves and not impose their views on other people? And in order to do that, we have to have social norms. There has to be a social structure of behavior, like you don't use your phone in the checkout line because it may be what you want to do, but it's holding up everybody else behind you.
Right.
So socially, you should have to conform to at least the minimum of using your phone after you get out of the line, out of everybody's way. But if I pass a
Now
law that says I can arrest you for using your phone in the checkout line,
Mm-hmm.
somebody's got to call the police. You got to wait for a police officer to get there to remove the person, or you just have to tolerate the behavior.
Right.
And
There's
that's
it's a
acceptable?
combination.
not too many
Our
choices.
society, our society is a combination of all of that. In other words, who should get to determine what books I read, censorship, or what music I listen to?
Mm-hmm.
That should not be done by another person or another group of people,
Really? That's what
unless it's a
society
book,
is.
unless it's a
That's what
unless
society
okay,
is.
but you got to allow me to have my choice of what I want that is not illegal. So if I wanted to listen to some rap, I get to do that. If I want to listen to the Temptations or the
So
Isley Brothers,
so so
I
right
get to
now we
do
have
that.
a situation where people are using automatic weapons to go in and kill hundreds of people at a time or tens of people at a time.
Mass shootings.
Okay.
Mass shootings. And what
But
you're
it's
saying
illegal to
and
do
what you're
that.
saying is
It's illegal to do that.
what you're saying is that we should not seek a weapons ban for automatic weapons because you should have the right to have that weapon. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying.
Well, what are you saying?
You got to be able to separate stuff and not just put everything in one basket. It's illegal to take a weapon, whether it's automatic or not, and go shoot a bunch of people. That's already illegal. And
I
I've
didn't say
always
going to shoot
said
people. I said to own an automatic weapon. What I said
right
was,
now, right now,
should we or
that's
should
not
we
illegal.
not regulate automatic weapons?
Well,
If
that's
that's what our
that's
society had to do, and the way our society does that is by legislation.
correct.
And that's the way our society
That's
But
the
the
way society.
does
discussion
that
But
particular
the
thing.
discussion about regulating starts someplace, and that's what we're having right now, is that discussion about regulating automatic weapons.
Okay.
Right.
And
So
how's regulating done? It's done through through election, through votes.
It's done through conversation, starts conversation. You and I have a conversation. You push
Right.
you push your congressman, or you write your
Right.
congressman, your representative, to implement the weapons ban. And that's how
Right.
we get there. And
Right.
so I'm asking the question of, how do we implement, or do we implement a conversation around what is acceptable and unacceptable in society? Or is everything acceptable? That we don't,
Well,
that
you
you do
have
what you
those
want to do, I do what I want to do.
you
Well,
have those conversations all the time.
people are having these
Okay, but see,
conversations every day, all the time.
using
How are they?
using the logic you just quoted me, someone could come up to me and decide, well, for societal norms, we don't think you should wear baggy pants. For societal norms, we don't think you should wear tight shirts. For societal norms, we don't think you should read books about revolution, about free speech, or whatever. For societal norms. At one time in America, it was a societal norm to treat black people any way you wanted. Right now in America, it's a societal norm that it's okay for police to shoot unarmed black men. But there's some people who don't believe that should be a societal norm, and they're pushing against that.
Hmm.
And that's all over. They're pushing against that. There are people who don't believe that unless you're police or in the military or something, you should not have automatic weapons. They're designed to kill a bunch of people quickly. That's a war weapon.
Hmm.
The, so there's people trying to push that.
Hmm.
There's gun makers and gun manufacturers who make millions of dollars a year making those weapons. So they're funding groups that are against that,
Hmm.
such as the NRA,
I'm
which is
okay. So
lately
what
having
is
its own
what is the
problems.
point? What is your point?
My point is, you keep saying about how we supposed to have these societal norms. You got on every norm, you got somebody for it, you got somebody against it.
Okay.
In
And
this
the
country,
conversation
in
continues.
this country is done by is done by, like you said, it starts off with a conversation. It's done by people trying to get through to their senators and representatives. It's done by legislation and all that, and it's done by the signature of someone from the executive branch.
Hmm.
There's You're never going to get 100% of the population to
Okay.
agree
So
with what you're
here's
doing.
okay. So first off, you don't know that that's true. That's an assumption. And second, if you don't try to put in societal norms, the idea that you shouldn't be able to buy a particular book then becomes up for grabs. So if we put in a societal norm that if a book meets a certain standard, there's no objection to it. If a book exceeds a certain standard, then that book maybe can't be sold at certain stores, but you can still get the book. And then there are certain books that we probably, as a society, don't want. Um, so we've got, oh, I can't think of his name, the guy that was in jail, Helter Skelter. What was
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson?
Man,
Charles Manson.
Charles Manson. So 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 Charles Manson's behavior was not socially acceptable and probably never will be. But if we don't have societal norms saying that, then how do we get people to not think that that's okay?
Okay, going back over some of the things you just said. What I said was true that you'll never get 100% of people to adjust. Okay, what issue have we had in this country that we've got 100% of the people to agree with? Okay. It's not. It's not that. It's not that. I just say it made it right. I just say it made it right. But I just say, for example, what I'm using for the point I made is history. Is history now. We have not had an issue. So, in the history of this country, we haven't had a point that 100% of the people came up. I haven't seen any, but okay, so we'll leave that at that. We'll leave that at that. Uh, what Charles Manson was doing, what he did was illegal. We already had law. We know what Charles. By the time Charles Manson did what he did, it was illegal. It was illegal, and it was illegal, and that's why he and his lousy followers went to he and his lousy followers. That's why they went to. That's why. Well, well, if our country want to say mass murder, a bunch of people coming up on a house that they were trespassing on and going in there and killing the people is legal. That's fine. So he no, I'm saying if people make that legal. When Charles Manson did it, it was illegal. That's why he was arrested. His followers were arrested. They were in the court. Now they let a few of them people out. Their people should all die in prison. And the reason why they weren't electrocuted or whatever, because during the time he did it, that was the few years that California had outlawed the death penalty in that state.
Yeah.
This then, and his case was one of the emphases for bringing it back in California. So, so that's how that. So when he did it, whether it was illegal or not, because there was a time that marijuana and all the hard drugs weren't illegal in this country, but they are now. But you got all these states pushing back. And you got Oregon that just passed laws saying that some of the hard drugs now are not illegal. Uh you got you got all these things, and legal is one way to say of societal norms and having societal norms. Just with usage and what people do. In a certain area, it could be not that it violated the law, but people find a certain thing that's distasteful, and then somebody that want to do it, the rest of the community put community pressure on them to not do that, so they can still. But I said that was one. No, I said that I have there, and I always said passing the law and legal was one way. I said that was one way. Another way is just like businesses tell you, even though the law says we can do concealed carry in most states, the business, the establishment has the right to put up a thing say you can't bring your gun in here unless you are a bona fide law enforcement officer. That's that's what they can do, and that's totally legal. Not in every case. Not in every case. You're not. You're not. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have, yes, yes. And that was my point. Back to what I said. That was my point. Back to what I said. You're not going to get everybody to follow along. You're not going to get you're not you're not going to get everybody to go with whatever your societal norms are. You're going to have a person that's going to say, "Yeah, that's what they said. So what? I'm still going to do mine." And just
Right.
like I said, there's no thing. Just like if you wrote a book, I don't want Warren to determine whether or not I get to read your book, or if Warren recorded a song. I don't want you determining. I don't want you to determine whether or not I hear that song. That's what we do. Yes, we have different ways, and we have different ways of doing that.
Yeah, but I have no
Yeah.
control whether I want you to see it or not. I don't control it.
Mm-hmm.
But who enforces that? Right. Just because people don't want it, don't make it go away. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Right. Yes.
So art succumbs to social pressure in what way? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the museum keeping it out, but will that stop people from creating that type of art and putting it elsewhere, or people acquiring it? Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that you won't. So, um, so the idea is, if society says this is not art is unacceptable, the idea is that we won't have enough of that art to even matter about trying to enforce it because people won't create it because as a society, that's not what we want to see. Now, does that mean that there shouldn't be some form of pushback on some of that? Like Leonard pointed out a while back, it was acceptable to hold slaves. And it took societal pressure to change that. So not all things that are put into place are going to be acceptable forever.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Well,
always
just
have to
like
continue to re-examine what we've put into place so that we are constantly, making sure that we are moderating things for the benefit of society and not the detriment. So
well,
we go.
it's just like this thing about what we were originally talking about was uh-oh.
You froze up. Okay, so I while he's gone,
Mhm.
let's go back to say the gun issue.
Okay.
Um, how do you see what type of social pressure can stop people from acquiring weapons of whatever
Well,
type?
the social pressure is that we pass legislation or we get gun owners to not create those kinds of guns through social pressure. So like, through social pressure, we get gun manufacturers not create those kinds of guns. Those kinds of guns aren't created. They're not sold. They don't exist in society.
Well, what if overwhelming number of people want those guns and there's so much money to be made? How's the pressure going to stop them?
Well, then what you're looking at is social pressure on the other side, the social pressure to have them. Social
Mm-hmm.
pressure has two sides, not just
Right.
one. So,
Yeah.
so the pressure to have more guns in society is a pressure also in and of itself. So then we
And
get
how
the guns
do you,
because social pressure wants the guns.
right. And then how do you change that?
Well, if enough people decide that we don't want those guns in our society, then the social pressure eliminates the guns.
Well, but we already know how many people want the guns, and they believe solely that they should have them. And so, how are you going to change their minds? Convince them that
Well,
that the
that's
guns
all a
are
part of
bad.
the conversation. Is that you have to. So just like um, nudity in society,
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people that are comfortable with nudity. There are a lot of people that are comfortable with certain behaviors that other people aren't comfortable with.
Okay.
And in the process of having those conversations, trying to get people to understand your side, to accept your side, you make arguments for and against. And then if we get enough people for one side of the issue, then it becomes a part of societal norms. We set the expectation that that you're not going to perform that, or you're not going to do that, or that's not going to exist in society, because the majority of social pressure is this is how it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
so,
it sounds like a numbers game is basically what you're saying.
I mean,
If
if
enough,
you want to look at it as a numbers game, you can look at
uh-huh,
it as a numbers game. I
right,
look at it as society setting forth boundaries so that the majority of people live a better life.
right. But society is determined by the people within the society.
That's what
Society, correct?
society is. Right.
Right. So if you have a society that is totally overwhelmed with guns. I mean, guns and ammo.
You mean like we
all
are now?
Like we are now. What does that say about society? This society.
That's another whole episode of the podcast. I want to thank you, folks, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me this afternoon. It's 3:00. We are out of here. Did you?
All right.
Did you? Either one of you had a last comment before I hit the "we gone" button?
Nah, I'm good.
Just if there's some things that you don't like, you got other choices. You don't want to watch what's on TV, change the channel.
Very good.
You like the music they playing, change the station.
All righty. Thank you,
I
folks.
used to
Thank you,
listen to
gentlemen.
some,
We will be back again next week. Oh, also, I want to let you know that we are taking the month of December off and the first 2 weeks of January off. After December, our next podcast will be the 16th, but we've got all of November to go. Everybody stay safe and make sure you wear your mask.
That concludes this episode of Altitude Adjustment, and thank you for listening. This podcast is streamed live on YouTube and Twitch.tv and is designed for listener interaction. Visit the website, thelionsdenstl.wixsite.com/home to join the discussion. The audio version of Altitude Adjustment is available where you get your podcasts, including Stitcher.com, the iTunes Store, and the Google Play Music Store, to name a few. Remember that the internet is powered by your likes, shares, and comments. So please like, share, and comment on this and other episodes of Altitude Adjustment because it matters. And as always, look out for the other guy because they may not be looking out for you.